Hello and welcome to the F1 Word. We are live as ever on a Sunday and have we got a ram-packed stream for you tonight. 3 car launches to go over, pre-season testing to preview, I guess, for want of a better term, and also Q&A as ever. Is everyone all right in the chat? It looks like we're well ready for this. We've had the big boys have launched this week, so it's a little bit more optimism around the sport for sure. Very quickly then, links to all my social media in the description. If you want to give me a follow on now, that would be awesome. If you're watching for the first time, you enjoy the stream, do consider subscribing towards the end. I will thank you all properly for 15k subscribers for Q&A because I don't want to take the first 5 minutes of the stream talking about that. We're going to jump straight into this because there is just so much to go over. As ever, good evening, Jonty.
Good evening, everyone. How are we?
I'm very well, mate. Formula One is, I would say, back. Would you go with that one now?
Yeah.
Yeah,
got cars on track tomorrow.
I can't wait. I really can't wait. It's going to be brilliant. We'll start off with McLaren because they were the most recent to launch. We had a little chat just after they launched. I love the livery. You weren't quite so sold. Have you been drawn to it a little bit more since you've had time to really look at it, Jonty?
It's the nostalgia. I love seeing that papaya colour. But it could be a bit nicer.
Yeah, it does resemble a bottle of Iron Brew. I will give it that. Whether they're going to get some sort of sponsorship from there, I don't know. I mean, why not? But I really do like it. But it's actually, I felt quite underwhelmed by it initially with the livery aside, but sort of having done a bit of digging, it's quite a few nice little interesting bits on there that we found.
Yeah, they've gone a very different direction to everyone else. And the barge boards are very simplistic almost. So it's going to be interesting to see if they stick any more on for testing, but good fun coming.
Yeah, definitely. Like I've been saying all week, we have to err on the side of caution a little bit because, of course, these cars are effectively, can we call them show cars, really? That's sort of what they are. We're going to see more stuff in testing on the cars, but there is a front shot of the new McLaren. Front wing, nicely sculpted, a little bit meatier around there, but nothing too drastic. But if we just zoom in just a little bit on those side pods, I called them second intakes of the day. A few in the comments said that's probably what they are. Am I right with that one, Jonty, or could that be something else?
It's most likely going to be a second intake, but it could be anything. I mean, there's coming up with all sorts of crazy ideas, it seems, this year.
I did wonder when you look at, say, the Red Bull, for example, or the Alfa Sauber, they have got bits of aero across there attached to sideboards. I did wonder if they might be mountings, perhaps, for something going across there. But with those intakes being so small, there's not really any room to stick any aero there, is there? And somebody just pointed out in chat as well how small the airbox is, particularly compared to last year's McLaren. You can definitely tell they've got a Renault engine in there and not a Honda one.
Yeah, that's quite obvious. How tight the packaging is in the air intakes is. I'm glad they haven't got Honda.
Yeah, it'd be a much fatter car. And we'll have a look from the top view in just a moment as well. You can see, as I pointed out in the video on Friday, there's a second row of those Vortex generator, much smaller wings on the side pods as well. The halo, I mean, it sticks out quite a bit on there, doesn't it, with the orange? Whether or not they'll paint it a different colour, I don't know. It's not gone down well. I mean, the delivery itself has been quite divisive, but I've seen a lot more love for the halo this week than I actually thought I would, John. I don't know if you sort of feel the same with what you've seen.
I've got to say, it's still generally negative. But I mean, on the McLaren there, it does stick out quite a bit. As people are already saying in the chat, they need more sponsors. Maybe that'll change it up.
Yeah, I think if anybody's going to get more sponsors, it'll be Zach Brown. We'll have a look from the side. You mentioned the barge boards there, John. There's a little bit of detailing underneath them, but they're not massively different to last year's, are they?
Not yet, no. Hopefully they are bringing more things to testing to try out. But they were saying all last year they've got the best chassis on the grid.
Yeah, and I don't know. I still think Red Bull probably nailed it last year. I think McLaren possibly a little bit better this year, but that Red Bull is pretty spectacular when you compare the two. But I honestly expect that we'll see very different barge boards. Of course, McLaren are already talking about a big aero update coming from Australia, and they've not even got the car on track yet. So, but what I will say, actually, going back to the livery very, very quickly, that car on those shots looks meh. On track, it looks stunning. It is very different on track, I will say that. So if you've not seen it, definitely go check those out on the McLaren website because they just look great on track. But yeah, I expected a little bit more detailing on there, but we'll go to the top down. because we talked about the tight packaging, and obviously there's some really nice detailing on the barge boards, as you can see there as well. But I don't think that's as tight as they could have gone. It is a lot tighter than last year, but I wonder if they're just, with the problems they had with Honda, erring on the side of caution, or did that late switch to Renault actually have an effect, do you think? Because they're saying it didn't, but then they're going to say that, aren't they?
Yeah, they're always going to play down the difficulties the engine change will make. But as people was saying it in the chat already, from top down, the barge boards do look a lot different. I'm not sure how much of that is going to be working at the sides, though. It looks like a lot of it's aiming for the floor. And with the rear not being quite as tight as we thought it might be, and some other things are spotted, they might be going a different direction and trying to steer away from the super tight package.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I mean, I'll come to what you want to talk about. And John T sent me these earlier today, so this one's all you, mate.
Yeah. Yeah, these big long slits everyone will have instantly spotted in the floor. We've not seen anyone doing anything quite as drastic along there, and I think they're going for sort of a pseudo ground effect, similar to what Renault tried a few years ago with the front exit exhausts.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, obviously that's going to suck the car down to the ground quite nicely, isn't it? Is that going to be? So you're saying that could be a compromise, and that could be why they haven't got the detailed, or not quite so detailed barge boards.
Yeah, because if they can get a good ground effect working, they don't need all the extra stuff that comes from massively complex barge boards and the tight package. I mean, you think that basic physics, fast-moving air is low-pressure air. As that fast-moving air goes across the top of those slots, it's just going to draw straight up and cause a curtain either side, allowing the car to work like the old ones did with the brushes either side. If it works, it's going to be massively ahead of everyone else.
Okay, so it would give them a hell of an advantage, wouldn't it? Definitely.
Oh, absolutely. If they can get that that's working as it should, then they will have a huge aero advantage.
The Mighty Dash says McLaren did have those slits in the floor last year. I didn't spot anything as drastic as that, but I don't think it matters how many slits you put on the back end of that car. To be perfectly honest, last year it was never going to get anywhere. So
yeah, they did have them, but I think they may well have been testing that, realised it works, so now they've really gone for it.
Yeah, they're definitely more, should we say, aggressive than they were last year with the slits in the floor. Obviously, they've got some towards the back end as well, which we saw on the top-down view. Do the ones towards the rear have basically the same effect?
They're more out, from what I understand, that's more about trying to stop the drag effect caused by the rear tyres. It causes vortices to go either side just to stop the air blocking against it, I think.
Okay. I was just asking
there are
you
some different philosophies on that.
Okay, fair enough. But from the top down, it is a very good looking car. I will say that.
Absolutely.
We'll go to the rear end of the car, and what I pointed out in a video on Friday, which I think is either the world's smallest T-Wing or most likely a mount for a T-Wing. You've highlighted it there as well, John T.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be a mount for a T-Wing of some description. Or possibly, you never know, there might be a little camera in there. From these videos that have been released just recently, we've had Williams today, we've had Mercedes before. There's little cameras all over the place. Even Red Bull had one looking across the nose, which was very odd. So who knows? Maybe that's an option. But you can see the rear of the engine cover. The bit I just sort of scribbled around. It's really open. Most of the cars are very tight around where the suspension mounts goes in. Which is why I thought that extra element in the side pod, it could be squirting some air through there, accelerating it to be worked by a T-Wing if it gets added. You never know.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think you sent me one as well for the Sauber, is the comparison between the two.
Yeah, they've both got that slightly bigger opening, and just that end just looks slightly upswept, as if they're going to be using a part of the body as a T-Wing. It'll certainly not have as dramatic an effect.
No.
but they're trying it.
The other thing as well to note on the McLaren is those sort of slots. Quite a lot of detail around there, actually, to be fair to them. Their rear wing was quite nice last year, but there looks to be a couple of additions on there, definitely. But it definitely feels like it's work in progress. That's definitely how it feels when I look at that McLaren. But to be honest, they've pretty much said the same. Renault said the same as well after we'd done our thing on Wednesday, that it was pretty much work in progress. So they don't want to give away too much, do they, at this stage, the teams, to be honest, Jonty? But we'd like to see a little bit more, wouldn't we?
Yeah, and I'm sure we will over the next couple of weeks. Perhaps not the first week, because everyone will be getting things settled in, making sure everything works. But the second week of testing, we're probably going to see some pretty outlandish stuff.
Yeah, I think we'll go over testing in a bit, but I'm fairly optimistic for McLaren this year. Having seen that car, I know there's still more to come, but I do genuinely think I kind of put it out there, put my neck on the line and felt they'd be able to make top four. Looking at that car, I think it's very probable they'll make top four, provided, of course, as we've said throughout the whole winter, Renault can turn up with an engine.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we've had a report today that Renault aren't bringing their full power to Australia. They're planning for 100% foolproof reliability. So we'll have to see how that affects the pace of the engine. But if they can get 100% reliability, that'd be brilliant.
About 80% more than they had last year. But yeah, I saw that they were talking a couple of weeks ago, weren't they, about 950 brake horsepower. But if you actually look at their performances last year with that engine in the back of the Red Bull, they weren't that far off the front. And if they'd sorted their reliability out, they were going to be a lot closer to the front end anyway. So if they can nail that reliability and then be able to bring more power when we get to, say, Spain, they're looking good. So are Red Bull. So it's going to be... I'm really looking forward to it. We'll talk about that in a bit more, though. We're going to go straight on now to the Ferrari, the SF71H, the biggest mouthful so far. I've been accused of being a bit of a Ferrari fanboy because I think that is an absolutely stunning car.
I like it, but I've never been that much of a Ferrari fan personally, so I'm going to try and stay as neutral as possible. It's certainly innovative.
Definitely. I mean, looking at that front shot there, you can see straight away how small those side air intakes are. There is definitely a second intake as well in that side pod. They've kind of gone down a similar route to Red Bull with the airplane wings, if you like, on the side pod. That mirror, though, I can't remember ever seeing anything like that in the 26 years I've been watching Formula One. That's innovation there, Jonty, isn't it?
Yeah, and we have no idea what it could be. I've been staring at that picture of that the wing mirror for ages from different angles, trying to figure out what it's doing.
It's like I say, I just can't remember ever seeing anything like it. I mean, let's be honest, the mirrors at high speed are completely pointless and useless anyway, so they might as well try and develop them to some point. Again, as I said last week or on Wednesday, I just love seeing these teams trying out new things. I'm like you, I can't quite work out what it's going to do.
I mean, I've been trying to think, is there going to be holes around the mirror on the other side to allow it through? Is there a hollow mounting for it, sending the air through the body so it can stall the air on another part of the car? Is it just to stop the wing mirror from frosting up?
Yeah, Craig Torley actually just said, don't you think the Ferrari has the best looking halo? I actually do. I think you've got a little bit of air around there. It's beautifully sculpted. They've been very clever with sponsorship on the top of it and the Ferrari badge in the middle. Why aren't all the teams doing that? I actually quite like the halo on that car, which is going to get me shot, I'd imagine. But the rear end of the car, they have gone with a T-wing. Similar to that on the Williams. I think it's a little bit higher up than it was on the Williams. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I mean, my first impression on that was, is that against the rules? It looked higher than they were going to be permitted, which was quite odd. But obviously they are going to be allowed it, or else it wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
That's going to... It looks as if it's going to do a lot more work than the Williams one will.
The fair point, actually. I mean, obviously, the halos, what I'm on about. The T-Wings weren't banned for 2018. I did have a couple of comments saying that they were, but they weren't. It's the positioning of them that were. The problem is, again, the FIA have brought out a rule and left a whopping great loophole in it. So yeah, classic FIA. But I thought that was sat a bit higher. I'm glad you spotted that as well. Some beautiful sculpting as well around the engine cover, across the top there. Some lovely sweeping lines. I'm not an aero expert, but I know what I like and I like what I see there. And a little bit of detailing on the floor, but I think quite similar to last year in terms of that shot. Looking on the top down though, I think that's more tightly packaged than last year's Ferrari. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just looks a lot neater at the back, Jonty.
Yeah, it's nice to see them keeping it. It's not really innovative. It's just very, very tidy.
Yeah.
And tidy is generally quick and unobtrusive with the aero. I think that's the philosophy they're going with. Or, well, certainly at the back, certainly not at the front.
So the mirror acts like a wing, forcing clean air into the top side pod inlet. Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, it could work.
Yeah, fair point.
Or as Racing just said, maybe it just flows through to stop the mirror creating drag, which is entirely possible. And now I've read that, I've just thought maybe it's just to allow the air through to stop the thing wobbling around so they can actually use it.
They don't use the mirrors. But like you say, from the top down, we said it with the Sauber. I know I've just compared Ferrari to Sauber, so I do apologise for that one. But just nice and simple, nice and clean. Some nice, clever bits around the barge boards. Again, like the McLaren, once you get a top-down view, you can really appreciate the detail on them barge boards. Also, you can see around the side pod there and their intakes, just very different to other cars. They have gone in a different direction again. But I just think all in all, it's a very good looking car. I know you're not quite sold on Ferraris, Jonty, but I am a fan of that. I will admit I'd like to see a little bit more white on there. I think they will miss the Santander sponsorship, but it's an all red Ferrari, so can't be a bad thing.
Yeah, it could be worse. Although I have seen comments from some people saying they don't like the halo because it looks like Ferrari World in Abu Dhabi.
That's actually a very good point. Yeah. It really does. Sorry, no, that's my comparison sorted for Wednesday's stream now. Comparing the the SF71H to Ferrari World. Just a shot there of the side of the car and the side pods and the floor around it. There looks to have been a little bit of development on the second barge board, as I keep calling them, because I still don't know what to call those ones on the side pods. A little bit more detailing on the barge board, but they don't look massively different to last year's.
And not massively different. They've just evolved them a bit. And considering it was Ferrari who really made the dramatic innovation with those last year, it's obvious that they're going to be the ones to take it to the next level. Hopefully,
yeah. I mean, we've seen on the car so far. You've just said there about evolution. I think the only car we've really seen massive changes in, I would argue, is probably the Alfa Sauber. Possibly, I'm trying to think of another one that's really... Williams, I guess, they've bought quite a few new bits to the car as well, but a lot of teams just evolving on what they had last year. But I suppose we kind of expected that, really, because obviously the rules reset, if you like, that came in 2017, they're still developing that, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even though we're a year in, people are still going to be learning what they can gain from these aero rules. Ferrari just got the jump on everyone at the start of last year with the regs around the side pod area. So they're still just a step, well, theoretically a step ahead. We'll see over the next couple of weeks if anyone's really caught up that way.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they develop through the season. Obviously, based on history, what will happen is they'll all absolutely nail the aero, end up in a year, 2, 3 years' time, 3 seconds a lot quicker, and then the FIA will change the rules again to slow them down, and we'll be back to square one because that's what we do. Are you feeling confident for Ferrari this year? Then they're another team that I'm feeling quite positive for. I know Mercedes are still probably going to be the team to beat, but I think they've got a good car there, a good chance.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very hopeful for what Ferrari can do. I mean, they were very fast last year, and reliability issues aside, they could have taken the title from Mercedes. They really could. So this year, that's all they really need to do. Just that little bit of reliability, a couple of steps forward with the aero, and they'll be there. They're not that far away.
One thing's for sure. I think he says for sure, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to have a very, very tight season this year. Before we look at the Mercedes, I just want to say thank you to Alex Pereira for the donation at the start of the stream, mate. Really appreciate that, and it goes a long way to help me improve the content on the channel. So thank you again for that. Let's have a look at the W09 then, John T. First impressions of it from your point of view.
It wasn't dramatic, was it?
I didn't think so. No, I expected more from them. I mean, the front shot there, I've highlighted straight away there, the side pod intake, hell of a lot smaller. Hell of a lot smaller on the Ferrari, the Red Bull, and the McLaren, and they've gone quite... It's not big, is it? I mean, if you compare it to 5 years ago, they're tiny, but compared to now, they're actually quite big, and I'm surprised by that. I just expected a bit more, but then I think if any team are going to hold their cards close to their chest, it's going to be the reigning world champions.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But you're right saying those intakes they're not big by F1 standards, but compared to what we've seen from everyone else so far this year, they are huge.
Yeah.
Which is that just indicative of this 1,000 horsepower they're claiming, that it needs that? Or have they caused themselves some issues in getting to this 1,000 horsepower?
Well, the Italian media claim they were shaking the car to pieces on the dyno, so maybe that's part of a compromise. I mean, once again, I don't believe that for a second because that's the Italian media. Possibly biased towards Ferrari, I don't know. But yeah, I'm not overwhelmed by it. We've got some better shots of the car, to be honest. The front one's not the best one. One thing I will say, and I'm going to say it again, I've seen some jokes in the chat about it, but very tight rear end once again. But those side pods are tiny, John T. Absolutely tiny, despite the size of the intakes.
Yeah, the rear is very odd. How it seems to scoop under. But as you say, the side pods are actually quite wide towards the front. Maybe they've got an engine package which is sort of further forward in the way it can sit. You know, moving that centre of gravity a bit further forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's the only thing I can think for the front of the side pods being so wide and then it being so narrow further back. I mean, you can't see it from that angle, but right towards the rear, it bends right under, which is really odd. I've not seen that before.
One thing as well, their tiny T-wing. That's definitely a T-wing. That's not a mount, is it? That is their T-wing.
Yeah, I get a feeling it's just more of a placeholder.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you look at the one on the Williams, on the Ferrari as well. I think most teams will probably go down that route. It might be positioned slightly differently, some higher up, some lower down, but I expect something a bit different there. Some slats in the floor as well. I really do apologise to anybody watching expecting proper in-depth analysis of the W09, but there really isn't a lot to talk about massively. We'll have a look at the side view though, because the barge board's not changed too much again, but there is a little bit more detailing around there, definitely. But I can't help but feel, I mean, they're all show cars at this point, as I keep saying, but I think this really is just to show off the livery.
Yeah, and even that isn't that much of a change. What they've added a fourth stripe to the turquoise to indicate the 4 championships. That's about it.
Fourth stripe to the turquoise.
Yeah, I was reading that the stripes, the turquoise stripes you see going along the side. Apparently, there's 4 to indicate the 4 titles.
There's 5 stripes in total on the side of that car.
I know, that's what I thought.
Okay, fair enough. I'm not arguing with you, John. I'm just arguing with Mercedes' reason, because even the turquoise ones, there's only 3, is there? So
yeah,
maybe this is the 2019 livery, perhaps.
No, they're getting ahead of themselves a bit there.
Just a little bit. But yeah, anything you want to say about the barge boards there, John T? We'll have a look a close look at the front of the car in a minute.
On the leading edge of the barge boards, it looks like they've actually refined it back a bit. By the end of last year, there were so many jagged elements, certainly from the side view, where it ended up looking like a knife rack. There was so many thin vortex generators and turning vanes all over the place. This one looks a little bit cleaner.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Like you say, not as aggressive, I guess, in its sculpting. I am going to go to the front because, and this next phrase is your fault, Jonty. The tongue flap at the front of the car, a lot bigger than last year. I have put a Williams picture up in a minute because we did talk about it in the Williams one, so we weren't sure what it was, but they are pretty close, to be honest.
Yeah, it's exactly the same thing, but they've gone again more aggressive with it. Now it's actually square, sticking out instead of just contouring into the nose itself. But that probably is indicative of the nose itself being so narrow.
Yeah, that's the Williams one there. Then we'll go back to the Mercedes one. I have actually closed in on that. There we go. You can just see how it joins the bodywork there. It's actually quite neatly done, to be honest, but it is similar to last year, but it does look bigger to me. It definitely looks bigger.
Oh, it is definitely a bit bigger.
By the way, I have no idea what the tongue flap does. I don't know if you can enlighten me on that one, Jonty.
Well, they've been calling it snowplow.
Okay.
Makes a bit more sense. It's just vortex generation and air direction towards the floor. I can only assume.
Sorry, so I'm having a really good look at it there. But yeah, a couple of bits on the suspension as well, which I would say are just vortex generators, to be honest. I don't think there's anything. I've also put an arrow there to the tongue flap from that angle because it's actually quite good. Or the snowplow. We'll call it a snowplow. It sounds better and less disgusting than a tongue flap. But I think, they're vortex generators on the suspension there, Jonty.
It's all it can really be. But I was under the impression they can't put individual aero elements on the suspension arms. They can sculpt the arms themselves. So maybe it will actually have some use in the suspension, but it's highly unlikely. It looks like it's just directing air towards those barge boards. So
yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, it's a different route, again, as we keep saying, to the way that Ferrari and Co have gone, whether or not and you can't really change your suspension up too much, can you, once you've got your chassis and that sorted, but maybe they might stick something on similar. But I just found it quite an uninspiring car, if I'm being completely honest. I'm just not overly sold. It does look very neat and tidy, but I would imagine that the car we see, possibly even as early as tomorrow, is going to be not completely different, but we're going to see a lot more on it than we've got at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be wildly different. Straight from tomorrow morning, I think.
Yeah, I'd just have a look at the comments, see if anybody add anything to that. I just saw a comment just a second ago, actually, that explained that. I can't remember who it was that said it, but effectively the tongue flap or snow plow works very similar to a diffuser, apparently. Yeah. Also, somebody's pointed out the brake duct is larger as well on this car, but
I think you'll find all of the brake ducts have been larger so far.
They're all they're all a lot bigger. But if we're going around F1 cars looking for tiny bits of vortex generator and bigger air ducts, then it just goes to show how uninspiring the car actually is. To be perfectly honest about it, but there you go. Nice little GoPro on the front there as well, which will disappear, of course, before we get into the season.
Yeah, people asking, is that taped on? You'd be amazed at how often duct tape is used in Formula One. It's a must-have piece of equipment for all the teams.
Yeah, definitely. I just have a look, just take some comments if anybody has spotted anything on the cars that they want to point out to us, or any questions they want to ask on these cars before we open up to proper Q&A. But what I will say, John T, or what I'll ask you, obviously Force India and Toro Rosso to launch tomorrow, but from the cars you've seen so far, which has the best livery, which is the best looking, and which one are you most optimistic to see it for? Optimistic for the forthcoming season? I will get my words out today. There we
go. The best looking, not necessarily the fastest, definitely not the fastest, but I honestly think the best looking is probably the Sauber. It's so different to what we've been seeing from them. It's great to see such a massive step forward. And I'd probably have to stick with that one for the livery as well.
Yeah.
What was the third question?
Who are you most optimistic for this season?
Definitely most optimistic for McLaren.
I think,
With those aero changes and having, well, a more reliable engine. We won't say a totally reliable one just yet. And an engine with some power. That's going to make a massive difference. They will jump so far forward compared to what they have been.
I think I'm optimistic for McLaren, but because I was kind of expecting the jump forward anyway, if that makes sense, I'm actually more optimistic for Sauber this coming year, if I'm being honest. I also think they have the best looking car to this point, which probably won't go down. In terms of innovation, I think, and in terms of changes to last year, best livery, I'll upset everybody by saying the McLaren. I absolutely love that. I am a fan of orange anyway, which confused a lot of people, but yeah, I am quite a fan of that McLaren livery. Just have a look through chat there and see if anybody spotted anything. Some optimistic for Toro Rosso, Honda, but I think, to be fair, if Honda turn up with a half decent engine, I just don't think they're going to be as bad as we're all expecting them to be be perfectly honest. Julian Oms thinks that the Ferrari is the best looking. The Renault is really good looking, says the real Solish. Al from Red Bull. Of course, the Red Bull. That packaging at the rear of the car, I can't get over that, John T. It's ridiculous. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
On which?
On the back of that Red Bull. Just
it's
ridiculous.
Obscene. And it's obviously going to be fast, but we're going to have to wait to see what the livery is.
I just having a flick through. A lot of people quite divided on them, to be honest. There are 8 small vertical vortex generators on the snowplow at the back of the bottom that you can't really see at most angles, says James Howe. I'm assuming that's on the Mercedes, so I might have a look for those a little bit later, because I'm going to go off when I've read some of your comments, see if I can spot things, because as I've said in the videos, I'm not the best at aero. I just I can look at something and see that it's different to last year's car, if that makes sense. That's why Jonty's here to help me out. We get there between us, don't we, mate?
Eventually, yeah.
I'm going to back actually have another look at those Ferrari mirrors, just because I think they are probably the most interesting thing, or one of the more interesting things that we've talked about today on the cars. I think they've got a great shot this year as well. The chat absolutely loving that Ferrari by the look of it, and I think you're not a Ferrari fan, but is this their year, Jonty?
It definitely could be. Yeah, I'm not a Ferrari fan, but I'm certainly appreciating how much of a step forward they made last year, and hoping that they can keep it going this year, just so we get the good racing.
I think they've been clever again, Ferrari. We saw this last season, didn't we? They've kept quiet. For the previous years, they talked a lot about, this is our year. We're gonna win it. We are gonna dominate. And they turned up and had a dog of a car. Last year, they said pretty much nothing. Started challenging. This year, they've done the same again. So I think that when Ferrari are gonna have a good car, because they don't tell you they've got a good car.
Yeah, they have been very, very, very quiet, and they're usually quite vocal with things when they've only got a decent car as opposed to a good car.
It's going to be interesting. I think we're in for at least a 4-way scrap. Maybe not for the title, but I think Red Bull and McLaren, if Renault turn up with an engine that's not particularly spectacular, then I think they're more likely to just take points off the big teams. I'll have a say in the championship either way. It's kind of how I feel for Red Bull and McLaren, but if Renault get an engine, we could have a 4-way fight for the title, which gets the mouth watering. Definitely, Jonty. Force India, they launch tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. UK time, which of course is 8 a.m. in Barcelona, just before testing. We haven't got an official time as far as I know for Toro Rosso, but I would imagine that if Force India are 7 a.m., they're probably 7:15 to 7:30, somewhere like that, because of course testing pretty much gets going from sort of 9-10 o'clock in the morning tomorrow in Barcelona. So cars back on track, Jonty. It's happening. It just all of a sudden feels so real. 2018, it's finally here. The year starts now for me.
Yeah, so close. Exactly 4 weeks today until Australia.
It just gets me very excited. But obviously testing, I'm going to pop on screen now while we look at the back of that ridiculously censored Ferrari there. the testing lineup for that started at day 3 for some reason, so I do apologise. It will come back round, but for the next 4 days of testing, there is nothing confirmed for Mercedes, or there wasn't anything confirmed for Mercedes and Ferrari up to about midday today when I made these graphics. Whether or not that's changed, I don't know. But as far as I can tell, and from what I've read, Red Bull are going to alternate between Ricciardo and Verstappen. Starting off with Ricciardo. Nikita Mazepin is going to get a shot in the Force India on day 1, with Nicholas Latifi taking day 4, with Esteban Ocon and Sergio Perez not going to get too much time this test, although I would expect, John T, at test 2 they'll probably get all the time, to be honest.
Yeah, it's in test 2 you're definitely going to have the main drivers doing the majority of the testing. The first week they're going to give their reserves and young drivers a chance.
Yeah. Williams are playing it quite. It looks like they're splitting the days for the first 4, which, yeah, it says to me they're still not convinced. But anyway, maybe not. But they've got Sorokin and Stroll for day 1, I believe. Then it's Sorokin and Kubica for day 2, and then it's Stroll and Kubica for day 3, and then it's Sorokin and Stroll again for day 4. Renault haven't confirmed anything yet. Toro Rosso just alternating between Hartley and Gasly. Haas are doing the same with Magnussen and Grosjean. McLaren, Alonso's doing day 1, Van Dorn day 2. They haven't confirmed anything for the other 2, but I would like to see, as I get probably attacked for being British and biased again here, I would like to see Lando Norris get a day of testing in that car, John T. Definitely. I think it'd be great to see him on track.
I'd love to see all of the teams putting their reserves in, to be honest.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it would help them just in case something happens. You want the reserves to have as much experience in the car as possible. Look at how much it hindered Williams with Di Resta.
Yeah, true, yeah.
All he'd really done was simulator time, which the simulators are amazing, but they're never as good as driving the actual car.
It's no substitute for track time, is it? Real track time.
No, not at all.
Sauber, they're alternating between Ericsson and Charles Leclerc. So Charles Leclerc's first appearance in Alfa Sauber will be on Tuesday. In terms of testing and coverage on TV, as far as I know, the test 1, there's nothing, but I've heard there's something going on around the second test. I don't know if there's anything coming to TV, so don't quote me on it, but there seems to be something going on with Liberty Media, so I'm keeping an eye on that. I mean, from a British point of view, John T, let's have an old man moan. Let's do it. From a British point of view, we pay money to watch Sky Sports F1. Okay, fair enough. They can't have proper filming stuff there. They can't do it because teams like secrecy. But you think we get a bit more coverage than we're actually getting, certainly through the pre-season launches and the pre-season testing. It's quite frustrating that we're going to have to sit and watch a blog all day, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a bit of a joke compared to considering what you have to pay for it. I mean, and other countries are the same. A few have to pay for specific subscriptions. Some don't even have access and have to resort to other means to see. But no one seems to get real coverage of the testing, which the proper Formula One diehard fans really want to see. It's something Liberty should really be looking at.
Yeah, I mean, even if they put together a highlights package of the morning, then a highlights package of the afternoon, they have to show it live if the teams want things hidden. But we live in an era now. Here comes the old man again. We live in an era now where you can hide stuff from TV all you want, but anybody can rock up with a smartphone and take a picture of whatever they want. So you can't really hide it like you could 10, 15, 20 years ago. So it's about time they lifted the testing restrictions. They like to hide stuff, but then they just drive out the garage with them hanging off the car anyway. So you see them. So I'd like to see a bit more coverage, but as far as I'm aware, it's just a case of reading the Sky Sports blog for me over the course of this week. I am going to do a roundup. Here we go. He's committing to it now, John T. But I'm going to do a roundup at the end of each day's test on the channel, just like a 5-minute video just to go over the running order and any key talking points, and then we'll have a proper chat about it during the streams Wednesday and Sunday as well. Bit of a debate over it. So I'll try and cover what I can. But if you're after in-depth coverage from TV, I don't think you're going to get it. Certainly not in the UK, which is a shame. I've just spotted there somebody mentioning Will Buxton. He said on Twitter he will be covering at the second test, I'm guessing for the new streaming service. That's what I was going to talk about. The streaming service, John T. It looks like we're going to get one. Obviously in the UK we're not properly, because obviously Sky Sports have got the rights, but That's something I would rather pay F1 directly for a streaming service than have to buy Sky as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could do that, I'd drop Sky completely, to be honest.
You're not enjoying the repeats of Friends all day, every day, Jonty, because,
No.
that's all I ever see on. Let's hop then into Q&A to start popping your questions in the chat. We've done well today, 40 minutes. I wanted to keep that under 40 minutes, and we've just knocked on 40 minutes. I think if we got rid of our moan, Jonty, would have been all right. But yeah, we'll answer as many questions as we can. Sard SQ, Verstappen to win the World Championship. As we've said all winter, it comes down to that, that Renault engine. I mean, we did say when we were talking on Wednesday, didn't we, that because they appear to have hedged their bets with the aero again, if Renault do turn up with a beast of an engine, Red Bull could end up dominating.
Yeah, it's one of the big points of this year coming up. It's just that Renault engine, because it affects so many teams. It's just massively important.
G-Van, Sean, why haven't you started using Instagram? I should say, actually, thank you to everyone that's following me on Instagram, because I've posted nothing yet. In fact, the logo's still out of date. I do intend to use it. It's just at the moment I've been that busy with everything else around the channel that I just haven't had the chance. Actually, I'm going to take this opportunity. I'll try not to take too long with this one, John T, because we don't want to upset people, do we? But I just want to say a massive thank you for 15k, which, given 4 or 5 days ago, I was thanking you for 14k. I'm a bit blown away by it, to be honest. So thank you so much for that. And I think now, I don't know about you, Jonty, but now I think we could probably start the hashtag road to 20k, do you think? Or a bit early?
A little bit early for that. He says as we hit it before the end of testing.
Yeah. Given that we, honestly, I'll not talk about it too much, but given that we thought 15k before the start of the season was wildly optimistic, I'm over the moon with that. So thank you to everyone that subscribed. It is absolutely awesome. Really do appreciate it. Thanks to subscriptions, donations, comments, likes, dislikes. Yes, dislikes, because at the end of the day, they all count as interaction. So, appreciate everything. I really do. How many teams will win races this season? I think only 3, asks Games Donovan. I think 4 for me. If you think Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, and if you get a crazy Baku, maybe a 5th with a Force India. That's, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to go with 5, being optimistic.
The more the merrier.
Yeah,
quite
absolutely.
Frankly. Yeah, the more the merrier. You are only thanking 3% of your subscribers. Well, I thought I just thanked 15,000, but obviously not.
I think
1 million
people watching.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I just get confused when I read things. It's keep up coverage like this. 20k before Oz. Yep, that'd be awesome. Mercedes is usually sandbagging, says Geordie. Actually, I saw somebody ask earlier who we thought would be sandbagging. I think we can expect pretty much every team to sandbag this year, John T.
Yeah, very much so. And I wish they wouldn't. I mean, it'd be great. Imagine if the Renault engine does really work well, and then McLaren just come out and nail it on the times all through testing. The same with Renault, same with Red Bull.
Yeah, we
saw
saw
a
some
different
good
angle
sandbagging
to
from
see.
Ferrari last year, didn't we?
Yeah, because the Ferrari that came to Australia was so much faster than the testing one.
Yeah. I will say, actually, on testing, we don't get to know too much, and we can't be 100% on the timings because they do sandbag. But actually, last year wasn't a million miles away from the actual running order. So maybe, probably not, but maybe we can take a little bit more from this testing. We'll try and get what we can. Sartovic says, what is Perez's future? I think that very much depends on Ocon, to be honest, John. If he stays, I could see Perez maybe moving on, but if Ocon goes, Force India will want to keep one experienced driver in there, won't they?
Yeah, the big key for Perez this year is to not let Ocon's performance affect him. It quite clearly affected him mentally last year, and that's what you need to stay away from. It slowed him down. It made him make a few iffy decisions. He just needs to chill, basically.
He was rattled, wasn't he? As soon as Ocon turned up and was quick, I think Perez was really rattled, and that's kind of what happened last season, all boiled over as we know. But I think that's one of the better lineups on the grid. I think if you put those two in any car, they're going to be quick. Obviously not winning titles in a Sauber, but as teammates, they're so evenly matched and so consistent when they're not running into each other that if Force India can just control them a little bit better, they're going to have a better shot at that top four, which I still think McLaren are going to nick them on. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for Force India. Are you hoping they stay pink tomorrow, John T, or do you want them to change up a little bit?
No, stay pink.
Definitely a fan of that. We weren't, or I wasn't initially, but yeah, definitely now. When does the testing begin? That starts tomorrow morning in Barcelona. Force India launch at 7 a.m. Taste the Rainbow. Good name. Will Sauber or Haas be last? Asks David Laura. I think it's going to be quite tight at the back of the grid, to be honest, John T. I can't see it being one outright slowest car.
Unless they've done something spectacular, then Toro Rosso will be at the back, I think.
Can you not see Honda turning up with a good engine?
It might be an acceptable engine, but it certainly won't be the best.
No,
it doesn't seem that way. They've had 3 years of trying this now.
Yeah, I think their best chance is probably going to be 2021 for Honda, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, they need to take the step, buy up the Toro Rosso team, and make it a works team, so they can really get all of their, industrial weight behind it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Vixie Fox says Honda are useless. It certainly feels that way. Maybe they'll nail it. We'll see. Games Donovan, which team has the most to lose? He says Williams, in his opinion.
Williams have got a lot to lose with them taking Paddy Lowe on, and how bland they've been in their performance the last couple of years. They really need to get some results. But personally, I think it's probably a Ferrari that have got a lot to lose. They proved so much last year. They need to carry it on and take the fight to Mercedes all the way through.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I think one team that we've seen from the car launches that have nothing to lose is Sauber, and they've definitely shown that in some of the stuff they've come up with. So I'm going to keep saying it. I am quite optimistic for them. Because, like I say, nothing to lose. They've gone aggressive on the aero. They've got that 2018 engine. At least one very good driver. Maybe Ericsson's a better driver than I give him credit for, but I think they've got a good shot this year. But I think Ferrari should have won the title last year. Yeah, I'd say they've got most to lose. I did just see a really good question. G-Van, I'm just going to say G-Van, sorry. Isn't it time Merc got a proper B team? They could do with one, couldn't they, really? I mean, Ferrari effectively have one now with Sauber. Red Bull have Toro Rosso for now. A B team would be good. I mean, that's what Manor were going to be, wasn't it, John T? Originally, wasn't that the plan?
There was talk of it, yeah. I'm not sure they do need it. It would be nice for them to have sort of a predetermined ladder for young drivers to come up, but they perform quite well enough on their own. I don't think they need the extra weight of production on them.
To be fair, I kind of feel as like Force India are a little bit like, not a B team as such, but in terms of, you just said they're developing young drivers, it's more often than not a young Mercedes driver ends up in that Force India or is spoken about and linked to that seat. We've got Russell has been talked about that seat a lot. Ocon's in there now. There was talk of Wehrlein originally, wasn't there? So they kind of use Force India for that side. So Race has just said that in comments as well.
Yeah, they're very friendly with each other. They certainly stay on good terms. Maybe it'd be better for Force India if they did get it a bit closer. Maybe a bit more of a technical deal.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if they can keep that Mercedes engine in the back of the four-cylinder, they're always going to go fairly well, aren't they? So, the budget they've got, maybe a little discount on that engine. Yeah. Maybe not as a B team then, but certainly somewhere to develop drivers. The Real So Lish, where would you rank the Toro Rosso drivers lineup?
It's hard to rank them anywhere. They're largely untested with regard to Formula One.
Yeah, I was going to say untried and untested, really, aren't they? So, based on other series, we know Hartley's a good driver. We know Gasly's pretty good as well. So, I think with the Honda engine and the uncertainty with the drivers, I think the pressure's kind of off everybody at Toro Rosso this year. I think the pressure's definitely on Honda, but I don't think there's any pressure on Toro Rosso at all this year. I think everything that goes on with that car in 2018 will be to do with the Red Bull in 2019.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way.
Who knows? With Alonso's luck, he's gone off and got himself a Renault engine now. Honda might turn up and end up with the third best engine on the grid and Renault have the worst, but I just don't see it. I don't think it was bad, but I don't think big leaps are going to come.
I hope they do, because again, it just brings the whole field closer together. But it's just unlikely.
Easy name says, not easy name, sorry, I do apologise for that. Apuruv. Which driver do you have the most expectation from in 2018?
Oh, the way we've talked him up over the streams, it's got to be Leclerc. He really has to deliver the positivity we've given him.
Very much put ourselves in a corner with that one, haven't we, Jonty, to be honest?
Yeah, but I really think he can. Bottas has got a lot of pressure on him as well.
Yeah. Raikkonen's under a lot of pressure. In terms of expectations, I possibly Vettel. I think he really needs to be the one to win that title with Ferrari. I can't see them sticking with him. I know, the similarities in terms of the fact he's German and he's gone to Ferrari to try and make them dominant again have been thrown up around Michael Schumacher, but I mean, he's nowhere near as good as that. That's not attacking him. It's just a statement of fact. But I kind of feel like he needs to deliver sooner rather than later. Otherwise, Ferrari, we get to 2021, why stick with him if he's not able to get that title?
Yeah, it's a good point. But I think Vettel has certainly got the capability to deliver it.
Don't get me wrong, he's a very, very good driver, but that's a very, very good driver for a four-time world champion. I don't want to sit here and say he's amazing because I'll get slammed for it, but yeah, I don't know. I expect, if you look at last year, we've said it in the stream already, he should have won the title last year. A lot to prove now, a lot to bounce back from. So that's why I feel he'll take the title this year. I really do, because I think he's got a point to prove now.
Yeah, I think the Tifosi are very unforgiving.
Yeah, they are. Alonso. Great example, he did a great job in 2012 with that Ferrari, nearly took the title a couple of years down the line, and he's out the door. I think that was 6 of one, half a dozen of the other in the end, but he was the one to turn Ferrari around, wasn't it? It didn't really come to that, so I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see Vettel win the title, but quite frankly, I'd like to see somebody other than a Mercedes driver win the title.
Yeah, I think everyone can agree on
that. Julian says Vettel better than Schumacher. Okay. Has Leclerc got more talent than Verstappen, asks Ako.
Potentially, but not right now.
He's got the potential to be as good as. I don't know. When I look back through junior formula, I don't know, because there's been more junior formula for Leclerc, hasn't there? Verstappen was accelerated to F1 quite quickly, so we haven't really got a gauge in that respect. He was a quick guy in the formula that he did race in.
Yeah, the problem with Verstappen is that it seems that in all the formulas he's been sort of fast-paced into the next one before he's actually had a chance to win anything, which is kind of odd. You look at Someone put in the Discord there was a list of all the drivers and the titles they've won. The only person on the grid who hasn't won a title of any description is Verstappen.
It's crazy when you think about the hype around him. Yeah.
Because I just don't think he's had the opportunity to.
Alex Pereira says, how do you think the additional tyre will change the racing? It'll mix it up nicely, won't it? Give us a bit more unpredictability, but I still don't think we're going to see a lot of the super hard.
I'll be amazed if we see it at all.
We didn't see the hard, did we, in 2017?
It was taken to Spain, and outside of maybe a free practice, no one used it.
Yeah. I can understand the Hypersoft. I think giving them effectively a qualifying tyre will certainly make Q3 interesting. But I don't see the point in the super hard.
Yeah.
Frankly,
and
I just don't.
As people in the chat are saying, and has been said by them, it's a backup tyre, but backup for what? Maybe public demos like
maybe
F1 Live. But beyond that, there's no need for a backup tyre, really.
But the thing is, though, that the super hard, I may be wrong, but the super hard is the equivalent to last year's hard, isn't it? Because they're all a grade softer.
Yeah.
So if we didn't use last year's hard, whatever. They'll do what they want. So I don't know. But yeah. Do I want to ask that? I kind of do. I've given my view on that in my top 5 of all time. But Ayrton Senna or Michael Schumacher then? John T. Who's the best?
Head says Schumacher, heart says Senna.
I think I'm trying to think. My top 5 of all time, which everyone absolutely hated. Senna for me, ahead of Schumacher, because had Imola 94 not have happened, I think he'd have won more titles than Schumacher at the end of it all. So,
he probably would have.
Insane driver as well. Don't get me wrong, Michael Schumacher, phenomenal driver, but Senna I just think another level up. Christian, when is Pirelli going to leave F1? I think they've got quite a long-term deal in, but I would like to see the tyre war back. Get another, and that actually answers Karthik's question as well there. Does F1 need a new tyre manufacturer? I think get a couple in, get a tyre war back, a bit more unpredictability.
Yeah, definitely. That's something it sorely needs. But it does throw up another issue with, is it artificial again? You know, you get one manufacturer could tailor all their tyres to specific tracks, to the high speeds or the low speeds, and then it kind of negates the actual difference.
Yeah. Venu says, don't forget Schumacher was beating Senna when he unfortunately died. Absolutely, but Damon Hill nearly won the title at the end of 94, and if Damon Hill can nearly win the title, then Senna would have won the title. So we've had, I think, Michael Schumacher, what year was it? In the noughties, I might be wrong. Michael Schumacher didn't get off to a great start. 2003, I think, still went on to win the title. So yeah, it's not how you start a season, it's how you finish, as I guess was proven last year with Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah, that's true.
What do you make of Renault focusing on reliability and not power? Asks Godfrey. We did touch on it earlier in the stream. Didn't really talk about it properly, but that has to be priority, really, doesn't it? Reliability, because look at the points they missed out on, all the Renault teams, because of that reliability. The power's not awful in the Renault. It's nowhere near the Mercedes, but yeah, I think reliability has to be a priority for them.
Yeah, it certainly affected Red Bull harshly last year. So maybe it's the right way to go, just get that absolutely nailed, because we didn't see 100% reliability from Mercedes even. There was the odd little niggle. It didn't really affect them in races that much. They had to change them around a bit during the weekend. But still, not everyone was 100% reliable, and that's what they need to be aiming for, which is a shame. They should be aiming for 100% power. But that's another topic.
Just a couple in chat actually pointing out there with the Renault that it's a good call, because with the 3-engine rule this year, reliability is probably more important than power.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Maybe not more important, but as important, isn't it, really?
Yeah, imagine by freak occurrence, Mercedes have a couple of nasty accidents forcing parts to be changed.
Yeah. Tom Sparks says the first stream in weeks without mentioning San Marino or Zandvoort. There you go. Just ruin that. We couldn't go a stream without mentioning them at some point, Jonty. Yeah. Argentina should return to the calendar. I wasn't a big fan of that track. It did throw some all right races up, but I wasn't a huge fan of it.
There has been some talk about it coming back, though. I'm not sure how reliable the talk is. It's sort of rumours between media outlets on Twitter and what have you, but it certainly could.
Need to counter what we're saying now about reliability. Subi fan makes a good point. The bigger they chase reliability, the more boring the races are going to become, because we're going to see a lot more look after your engine. That's a really good point as well.
Yeah, exactly. Which is what we don't want.
Neil says, or mention the good old days. We've already talked about the good old days in this one, so we'll always do that because we're getting old now. Bernardo asks, which teams would benefit from the 3-engine rule?
Well, as it stands, only Mercedes, really. Because they had the best reliability.
Yeah. But their benefit is only going to be that the others... I don't know. I mean, I think I can see Ferrari spent a lot of time in that factory working on reliability as a priority over everything else as well, because that's what ended it for them last year, really, wasn't it? So, and okay, fair enough, a couple of stupid mistakes from Sebastian Vettel, but ultimately reliability was what ended that season for them. So, yeah, I think Mercedes, like you say, the only team that didn't really slip up last year too much. So, here's one to end on then. MC Claw Larson says, who will win the first race of 2018? Go on then, Jonty.
Vettel.
Do you still think Alonso's going to stick it on pole?
I hope he will. I don't think it truly could happen, but I really hope he will. But I definitely think Vettel's going to take the first race.
I'm just thinking. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's definitely a bit more. I don't know though. I'm going to say Hamilton. I don't know. Partly because I want to mix it up a little bit rather than just say Vettel again. But to be honest, I'd love to see Ricciardo Verstappen do it as well. But I think if we have just a standard Australian Grand Prix where, as we've had the last couple of years, reliability's been all right, I think it'll be between Ferrari and Merc. But if we get a crazy race, who knows?
Yeah, it would be great. It would be great if one of the Red Bulls just threw it in there to really mix things up right from the go.
Just a couple through chat then. Nation Goering says Max. Vicky Fox says Stroll. Gibbo says Palmer. Kimi as well says Gibbo. So Gibbo's backing Kimi and Palmer. I think you're better off backing Kimi, to be honest. Sard says Bottas. Yeah, to be honest, if a Mercedes and a Ferrari is going to win, it would be nice to see a Bottas or Raikkonen come out on top, wouldn't it? Just to give us that mix at the start of the season and shut us all up. And yeah, that'd be nice to see. Ericsson says Jurassic Emu, Verstappen, Vettel, Bottas.
If Raikkonen pulled off the win there, it would set him up for the year nicely.
Yeah,
he would be in such a good mindset for the rest of the year. It would really tighten things up at the front.
I did it in a Lotus a few years ago. Different Kimi then, though, I kind of feel. But yeah, I think I'll go with Lewis. I think he probably will. You're going to go Vettel, and a few others are going with. Yeah, but if I was picking a driver I'd like to see, I'd probably go Alonso. Give him that boost. He's had a terrible 3 years, but yeah, I'd definitely go with him. Thank you, John T. As ever, mate. I'm trying to keep it to an hour this week because I've got loads coming up over the next few days, and we had loads last week. So, but thank you very much for joining me. Your insight was awesome as ever, mate.
Thank you very much. See you later, guys. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Yep. Cheers, mate. Bye-bye. Thanks again to John T. Thanks as well for everybody tuning in. I think we hit over 400 viewers again today, possibly more. Just have a look on Discord, some saying 520. So thank you very much for that. Once again, thank you for 15k as well, because that's just absolutely awesome. Let's see if we can get to 20k before the start of the season. Big ask, I know, but yeah, if you are watching and you haven't subscribed, please do hit that sub button. I'm going to give a quick shout out to all those that have subbed over the last hour. So thank you to Bradley, Michael, Adrian, Dan. Thanks again to Alex for that donation. You Look Beck, Ferrari Manos, Raul, sorry, Harsh shit K11. That's what I'm going to go with there. Sorry. Chris, Jamie, Nick, Alexis, Daniel, Runners, Joshua, Tobias, The Wanderer, and CC Abos. Thank you very much for subscriptions. Much appreciated. And thanks as well to Ben for your support on Patreon. If you do feel like supporting the channel longer term, do go check out my Patreon page and join the 5 of them over there. It'd be awesome to have you on board as well. And every penny goes into helping to improve the content on the channel. You can follow me on social media. Links to Facebook, Twitter, and Discord are all in the description down below. I will be back tomorrow with testing day 1 roundup, and that's going to carry on through the week. We'll be live on Wednesday as ever for interactive Q&A. Plus, we'll be talking, of course, about testing, and then I think Sunday, probably a testing preview. I don't know. I've not got as far as Sunday, but it's going to be a very busy week. Thank you as well for all your support on the channel over last week as well. A lot of content went up, and it was awesome to see so many of you getting involved. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.